Well, the sermon title, as you can see, is One-Way Ticket. And it seems like that's just what everything has been about today, dads and moms. I know I'm speaking to you too, but especially for you dads, speaking to you as a dad and with the greatest privilege of all, being a granddad as well. We're going to talk about what it means to launch young people into this world. Now, you saw Stanley take his ride to the edge of space thanks to a dad who had a crazy idea and a little kid who was willing to let his favorite toy in the whole world go into his father's hands to go on this amazing trip. But do you know what's the hottest ticket reservation right now in the solar system? It isn't actually a weather balloon to the edge of space. It's actually a trip to the planet Mars. No guarantees it will actually happen, but last June, a Dutch company named Mars One began offering the trip of a lifetime. Remember that phrase. It plans to put 4 people on the red planet in the year 2023, followed by 4 more every 2 years. There's only one catch. You guessed it. It's a one-way ticket. Turns out to be the trip of a lifetime. It's the last trip these people, should it ever happen, will ever make in their lives. So who would want to go to Mars and never come back? Don't raise your hand right now if you're having a bad day. You really have to think this one over. But it turns out that in the first 2 weeks that this trip was, after this trip was announced, 78,000 people from 120 different countries around the world signed up for it. That was in the first 2 weeks. They ranged in age from 18 to 71. Beam me up, Scotty. And I was most captivated by what an 18-year-old girl named Kaylee MacArthur had to say about why she applied. That's Kaylee there. Quote, "Being young doesn't make me want to do it any less because I have my whole life ahead of me. It makes it more exciting. I love all my friends, my guy friends, my family. It's not that I'm trying to get away. It's like I'm trying to strive for something more." Bye-bye, Mom. Bye-bye, Dad. Isn't that really, though, what raising kids is all about? Sending them on a one-way trip? We'd like to think that things will always kind of be the way they are. I know, especially when you are so deeply invested in parenting, and it's 24/7, and as the kids get older, it's just that the jobs change, but the stakes get higher, and every single dime in the family budget is going into all of the things that are happening, and every single minute is being planned around sporting events and other activities. We're privileged to bring these kids into the world. We adopt them. We become a significant part of their lives. We have them join us because of a marriage that we enter into, whatever the case might be. Don't we want to teach them to strive for something more? And yet when you think about it, striving for something more means that they're on a one-way trip through this life to go out and find that thing that God has for them, that only they can find. It's a one-way trip. As you and I all know, you can never go back to where you were. You can never go back to who you were. Some of us are saying that's the greatest news in the world. But there are also those moments when we wish, especially as we get older, that we could go back and maybe just have one more shot at that scene, Lord. I could get it right that time, and then everything could be different. But life doesn't work like that. And that's what makes being a dad so important. We're the ones who help get them ready for the great voyage called life. We're the ones who help them pack into their hearts and minds the ideas, the values, the motivation, and the morals for the rest of the journey. We're the ones who build the launch pad and aim the rocket that carries them on their way. We're the ones who give them a sense of purpose, an ability to believe that God can help them make those next steps to transcend themselves. So, Dad, here are a few pointers from the one who created the whole universe, the solar system, Mars, our little planet, every cell in every one of our bodies. He's the one who started us on this journey through life, and He alone knows the way to our destination. In fact, He's the only one who knows the destination. And we read in His Word in Proverbs 3, verses 1 and 2, and these are words spoken as a father to a son. "My son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart. For they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity." No mention there of what the son will be. No mention there of the dad seeing his dreams or his aspirations fulfilled, except for one, that this young person will have the life that God meant for her or for him. So what are the keys to a successful mission? What do you take along with you? How do you know where you're going? And how do you know that you're going to reach your goal? Well, let's start with number one, what to take with you. What to take, what to leave behind. I can imagine if they ever actually do put people in a spaceship and shoot them off to Mars for the rest of their lives, there will be some soul searching about what you're allowed in your 3 kilos of personal belongings. You know, whether it's music or whether it's a memento from home or a photograph or whatever it is they'll take, I can imagine that a lot of thought will go into that. Paul writes to us about the journey from childhood to adulthood and reminds us that most of what we experience in childhood we leave behind. You know, these words which also come from the chapter that Andrew read to us just a moment ago, 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. You can drive through your neighborhood any nice Saturday this summer and see this being acted out by one family after another. Yards filled with high chairs and cribs and children's toys all spread out, clothes, bicycles, you name it. Things that have come out of the garage, come out of the basement, come out of the kids' room to make room for more stuff, of course. But these are childish things in most cases that are being left behind. And you can imagine the conversations that took place. You've probably had them. Sitting there in a child's bedroom or by the toy box or whatever, talking about what toys go in the yard sale or what toys go to another friend or what toys go to Scampers or whatever the case might be. And what's that all talk about? It talks about leaving things behind. So we know that we leave a lot of things behind, but there are some key things we don't want left behind. There are some things that we want to put in our children's hearts so deeply that they never ever lose those things. So let's look at the next verses in Proverbs, because here we see 2 things that are absolute keys to your child's success. First of all, verse 3, let love and faithfulness never leave you. This is the Father speaking to the Son. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Why love and faithfulness? Of all the things that the writer of the Proverbs could have said, if he was going to pick 2 things to start out this conversation, why love and faithfulness? Well, these are the 2 words that we most often find describing God. On Mount Sinai, when God revealed himself to Moses and said, this is what I look like, this is who I am, this is what I'm made of, he defined himself with these 2 words. Listen, in chapter Exodus 34, verses 5 and 6. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and stood there with Moses, him, and proclaimed his name, the Lord. And he passed in front of Moses, proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. Now, God designed each one of us to be his reflection in this world. He designed every parent, every mom, every dad. He designed every caregiver and every extended family member to be a reflection of himself in this world. He designed your children to be a reflection of himself in this world. So if God reflects into our lives, shines into our lives, these 2 things, love and faithfulness, then it makes perfect sense that we would want our children to be reflections of that love and of that faithfulness. That love and faithfulness would be like something hung around their necks or written right in their hearts. Love and faithfulness are the 2 core values that will determine how a child acts and thinks in life. Think about those 2 words. What does love suggest to you? Well, it suggests compassion. It suggests a giving spirit. It suggests being able to empathize with the needs of others. It suggests to us the opposite of hate and anger and meanness and bitterness and so on. It suggests to us a child that's able to forgive, to make room for others in his world or in her world. What does faithfulness suggest to you? Well, certainly represents to us that a child that will choose to tell the truth, even when it would be more convenient to tell or live a lie. It suggests a child that will stick to things and will stick to his or her guns, regardless of the pressure of all of society and all the peer pressure around that young person. It describes for us a young person who will grow up to be able to make a promise and walk out that promise and keep that promise to his or her life mate. Love and faithfulness. These are the two things. These are the two things that make God accessible to us. God is a loving God, so we dare to come into his presence, even when we know we don't have any right to. God is a faithful God. That means we know he'll stand by us even when we let him down. We know that even though everything is shaken around us, God is true to his word. So how do you get your child to write love and faithfulness on the tablet of his or her heart? Well, the answer is really quite simple. Your kids will pack for their journey the way you packed for yours. They are way too smart to fall for do as I say, not as I do. If you want your kids to have love written in their hearts, figure it out. Love them unconditionally. Love their mom unconditionally. Show love and courtesy to their mom, even if you and their mom are no longer together. Love them. Show them what love means. If you want your kids to have faithfulness written in their hearts, well, again, it's not too complicated, is it, dads? Be faithful. Be faithful to your wife. Be faithful in what you think about when nobody's around. Be faithful in how you relate to her and to those children. Build a fortress of faithfulness around your children. This is not talk. This is not just the flapping of gums. We live in a culture that lies all the time. I've come to see that when I watch the television, the best way to the truth is usually to simply invert everything I hear, because that's probably what they're really saying. It's a sad time that we've come to, when people can go before a congressional committee and say one thing, and 2 days later we find out exactly the opposite. And that's the world we live in, because there's so much at stake, it seems. Don't fall for that. Don't talk out of both sides of your mouth. If you're struggling with making that relationship work, guys, go get help. Your children's future is at stake. Your kids will reproduce what they see you do. Love and faithfulness. Number 2. Okay, so we've packed at least these 2 things. These are just 2 you're going to be able to add to your list. I am not saying they're the only 2 values that you bring, but they certainly are at the very bottom of the suitcase, if you will. Secondly, where to go? Studying the right course to another planet involves getting a lot of math just right, doesn't it? We're talking millions and millions of miles. We're talking about the sun going however many thousands of miles an hour, and Mars going how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of miles an hour. And somehow, if you do all the math just right, you can take a little rocket ship and you can park it in orbit way out there. You know something? It's just math. Getting your life course right is way more complicated than getting a spaceship to Mars. After all, a child sets out on his or her journey with no prior experience, with no way to know what will happen in the future. There are no computer programs. There are no manuals. There are no descriptions of the journey for this venture. The journey that your children faces right now is literally a journey into the unknown. Those of us who are parents or grandparents, look back. Just take a second with me. Look back at how much your world has changed. When I prepared this sermon, I keyboarded, I didn't type. I learned to type a couple centuries ago on an electric typewriter in a business class. There was no such thing as anything but a corded phone. It was an electric typewriter. That was like really big stuff, because then I had to go back with the regular kind where If you didn't hit the key hard enough, the letter didn't come out very bright. You could always tell which letters you weren't sure of when you were typing because you would hesitate. And then, of course, those letters would always be not quite as dark. No such thing as iPads, iPhones, iTunes, texting, and all the other things that go with that. Unheard of. What will the next 20 or 30 years look like? I think we've all figured it out by now. I don't even want to try to figure it out. So how does a kid find the path into that new future? Well, dads, come on, let's face it. We aren't always the first ones to ask for directions, right? We'll spend that extra 2 hours putting the bicycle together instead of stooping to look at the instruction manual. Or we'll drive around town looking for that restaurant instead of stopping to ask. It just feels good to, quote, lean on our own understanding once in a while, doesn't it? But when it comes to charting a life's course, that just will never do. The only one who knows the way, and the only one who can guide our children along it is the one who made them in the first place. Nobody else can guide them in that path. That's why we read those most famous verses from Proverbs, probably. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Okay, dads, if our kids are going to learn to trust in the Lord and not lean on their own understanding, where are they going to learn it? They're going to have to see that demonstrated. See, there's going to be a day all too soon, and we've seen this. We've seen kids standing here. We've got two young people who are now committed to each other for marriage. We see, and you have been to graduations, and you'll be to more graduations, and hear about more young people moving on. That day is right there before you know it. Mom and dad won't be there to guide and direct, set boundaries, set curfews, scrutinize the people that they want to go out with, or even pray their prayers for them. They will have to learn to do the trusting. And when they do, they'll discover what each one of us learns, that verse 6 says, in all your ways submit to him and he'll make your paths straight. But they're going to have to find that straight path. So dads, what do we have to do? We have to show them what it looks like to trust in the Lord with all your heart and not lean on your own understanding. Well, how do you do that? Well, one way is to just talk about it. I don't know, dads, whether you are the one who ever prays out loud in your house, but if you got a problem with that, I got 3 little words for you. Get over it. If you can order a hamburger or a cup of coffee, you can pray for directions in front of your kids. It's good for them. Something's lost, just stop. Let's just ask the Lord to help us go find that. Got a problem with a toy that's broken or this or that? If it's something where you can pray, if they're sick, you can pray over them. If they're agonizing over a homework assignment, you can say, well, why don't we just ask the Lord to kind of pull the pieces together? You can help them learn that it's okay to go there. And we're not talking about magic fairy dust coming down and papers writing themselves, but we're talking about an attitude of trust. Let them see mom and dad praying together, talking about how God leads. You don't have to get super duper spiritual about it. It's as practical as daily life. But just make that part of your conversation. If you don't, you are saying to your kids, religion is something we do on Sunday. We keep up appearances, but the rest of the time, we're on our own. And when your kids walk out of your house, they probably will think that life is really a rest of my time. Why do I need to go do that thing my parents did? But if you can teach them the value of praying, what a beautiful thing. I know in our home, my oldest daughter, was very close during those high school years to my wife. They would sit and pray about that future life. Every night, every single night they prayed for that young man that would come. And when Adam came into their lives, then they prayed for Adam and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. What was that saying? Here's a young lady who was learning to trust. That's our job, dads. They're going to learn it from mom, they're going to learn it from dad. But all the statistics that we have, all of the research that we have, tells us that when dads go to church, kids go to church. And you can just extrapolate from that. If dads pray, then kids are going to pray. Mom's going to knock herself out Dad just has to show up. That's not fair, is it, moms? Not fair, but it works. Last piece, reach your goal. So what do you want most for your kids? What's the best possible outcome that you can imagine? Now, far too many parents fall into the trap of working out their own dreams and aspirations through their kids. We've all probably felt that. If we've cared about our kids, we've probably felt that. The time that they find out they're going to have a little baby, mom and dad begin planning what sports the little girl's going to play, the little boy's going to play, what college they're going to attend, how much money they're going to be able to earn, what kind of mate they will have. It goes on and on and on. I mean, just think about being Pastor Mike Oldham's grandkids. Will there ever be a Yankee shirt on any of those? There you go, see? Fulfilling his dreams through his children. What can I say? The writer of Proverbs warns against this kind of behavior. Listen to verses 7 and 8. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. You see what he calls it? Being wise in your own eyes. In other words, he's saying, moms, dads, especially you dads, don't strive to make your child become your own reflection. What a temptation. Well, I brought these kids into this world, and I've invested myself into them, and they really better come out the way I'm thinking they need to come out. Frankly, dads and sons have had some bitter words over this exact problem. When a young man, or a young woman for that matter, didn't do what dad thought needed to be done, didn't fulfill dad's ideal, didn't fulfill dad's dream, dad let child know it. What was going on there? Well, perhaps, in a very misguided effort to help guide a child, perhaps dad was trying to make the child reflect himself. Be a reflection of me. What will people think if you do this or that or the next thing? Scripture says, don't strive to make your kids your own reflection. Your children were designed to reflect something far greater, someone far greater. That's their destiny. Anything else is less than fully human for them. When we try to make our kids a fulfillment of our dreams or try to make them clones of ourselves in other ways, aren't we actually trying to make them reflections of us? And isn't that the ultimate narcissism? We only become our true selves when we turn away from that false self that we create by being wise in our own eyes. And every time we're wise in our own eyes, we're making a false self. Not something that reflects God's wisdom, but that reflects our take on life. We only become truly human when we turn away from being wise in our own eyes and learn to respect and reflect the God who created us. See, that's why he says, fear God. He doesn't mean fear, tremble in terror of God. God's going to smite me. He's not saying that. He's saying make God your ultimate object of respect. The absolute true north of everything in your life. The only reflection that comes out of your life. Only then will we turn away from evil in its many seductive forms. Virtually every form of evil in this world is designed to seduce us into thinking we are God. That we have the answers. That we settle the score. That we're the final authority. That we're the judge. That everything exists to bless us. Here we find words that are saying, don't fall for it. Don't be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord. Just say, wow. Turn the telescope toward God. Once again, guys, it all starts with you. If you are self-focused and narcissistic, guess what your kids learn how to be? If you sit there and hog the remote and watch TV while your wife slaves in the kitchen, guess what your son is figuring out how to do? When I grow up, I'm going to find me a little woman who will go in the kitchen while I hog the remote and watch television. Because it's all about me. How do you fix that? It's pretty simple, actually. You turn off the television, put down the remote, and go in the kitchen and show your son real men peel carrots or wash dishes or do whatever. Because I am exhibiting God's love and God's faithfulness to the most important people in my world. Put God first and treat your spouse and children with love and faithfulness. Honor and reflect Him in your thoughts and actions, and you prepare your kids for their own discovery of God's purpose for their lives. Most of all, dads, our mission is to be a reflection of that Father of lights that we sang about a few moments ago. To shine that kind of fatherhood into that brief window of time that we have as we launch our young people on their one-way journey out into life. When we do that, then our children will experience what David came to know about the best father in the universe. Psalm 103, let me just close with these verses, beginning with verse 13. As parents feel for their children, God feels for those who fear Him. He knows us inside and out, keeps in mind that we're made of mud. Men and women don't live very long. Like wildflowers, they spring up and blossom, but a storm snuffs them out just as quickly, leaving nothing to show where they were. That's the one-way journey, isn't it? God's love, though, is ever and always, eternally present to all who fear Him, making everything right for them and their children as they follow His covenant ways and remember to do whatever He said. So dads, it's a one-way journey. Time is short. The packing is already underway. The guidance system is already being built. The mission, where no one's gone before. But you and I have the privilege of walking that journey with our kids. You may have the privilege, as some of us do, of actually sharing many years of that journey. I hope you do. And perhaps you'll discover that some of the best years were the ones that you never even could have dared to dream would ever happen. But it all starts now. Can we bow our heads together? Ask if our prayer team would come up and our band. Father, we want to pray a special blessing over our dads today. Lord, I pray that you would pour out upon each of us, dads and granddads, stepdads, whatever our role, that love and faithfulness, humility, and the fear of the Lord. Pour that out upon us, Lord. Tear down and break down and remake those places that are infiltrated with that computer virus of sin that will throw the guidance system off every time. Lord, places where anger or resentment or unforgiveness, control and pride have snuck in. Lord, show us where they are. Give us the strength to root them out so that we can be filled with love and faithfulness. Lord, for those who have lost their dads, both young and old, we pray that you would become even more and more real as that Father in heaven, but also that you would raise up those godly role models for these young men and women, and even for those of us who are older, who can walk that part of the journey with us as your reflection. Lord, I thank you for each dad. Lord, we thank you for each of our dads. Some of our dads are with you now, serving you in that beautiful place that we know as heaven. Lord, others are here, perhaps a phone call away, perhaps we'll have dinner with them today, perhaps we'll see them. Lord, help us honor them. And most of all, Lord, teach us all to honor you. In Jesus' name I pray. Let's stand together. We're going to sing. If you have a prayer need this morning, please come down. And happy Father's Day, everybody.